Hi, welcome to In Sync, the podcast that explores the history and impact of some of your favorite music moments in TV and film. I'm your host, Rachel Brodsky.
And I'm Betty Spaghetti.
And I'm Stillwell Angel.
What a hitter.
The 1992 comedy drama classic A League of Their Own famously starred Madonna as all the way May Mortabito and featured her synthy slow ballad This Used to Be My Playground over the closing credits.
The movie is a fictionalized account of the real-life All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. A League of Their Own featured an out-of-the-park ensemble cast, including Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, Madonna, Lori Petty, Rosie O'Donnell, John Lovitz, Gary Marshall, Bill Pullman, David Strathairn, just to name a few.
What is the story behind This Used to Be My Playground? Why was it not included on the original soundtrack? And who are some of the other famous singers who wrote original songs for A League of Their Own?
Plus, a little later in the show, we'll chat with author Erin Carlson about her new book, No Crying in Baseball, the inside story of A League of Their Own, big stars, dugout drama, and a home run for Hollywood.
All this and more on the latest episode of In Sync.
You're gonna lose. Okay, let's just come out and say it. A League of Their Own is the best baseball movie, period.
I would agree, and I usually hate baseball movies, or really any sports movie, or any sports.
I don't mind sports movies. I don't mind sports, and I understand that they all kind of deal with the romanticization of the game, right? Sport of kings, men of men, blah, blah,
Field
blah.
of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Even in the movie Moneyball, written by Steve Zalian and Aaron Sorkin, Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, says, like, how do you not get romantic about baseball? It's fine.
I could think of lots of
ways.
I will say that A League of Their Own is probably the only movie about baseball that makes me a little bit want to play baseball. A little bit. If it didn't involve sliding and hurting oneself, and
what if my bosoms just weren't pop out?
Yeah, what if, just my bosoms just keep flying out?
Oh my God.
Has there anyone who hasn't seen your bosoms?
So the movie was written by Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel, and I love crediting screenwriters, but I love the name Babalu Mandel. And it was directed by Penny Marshall, director of Big, and Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. It follows the inception and first season of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. It's World War II. All the men are off fighting the Germans and Japanese. And so Walter Harvey, played by Gary Marshall, brother of director Penny Marshall and director in his own right of movies like Pretty Woman, he decides to start a baseball league featuring women. Mostly as a novelty, but also to placate people who are thirsting for America's pastime while the boys are at war. The movie primarily follows two of their star players, Dottie Hinson, played by Gina Davis, and her younger sister, Kit Keller, played by Lori Petty, who get drafted by the Rockford Peaches, one of only 4 teams. And the rest of the Peaches are a ragtag group of girls whose sexuality is never questioned.
I love these girls. I don't need them, but I love them.
So, real quick, some background. This is Walter Harvey's character is based on the real-life Wrigley family who own the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley Field, but in the movie it's changed to Harvey Bars, which is like Hershey Bars, because they didn't want to have to pay the Wrigley family for their naming rights.
Oh, fun fact.
But let's round the bases of the Peaches. So Dottie is a catcher, Kit is a pitcher. There's Ann Ramsey, who plays the illiterate first baseman Helen Haley. Megan Kavanaugh as Marla Hooch at second base. Marla Hooch grew up with a single father who didn't teach her how to do her hair and makeup, but did teach her how to hit dingers. And there are several cracks at the expense of Marla's looks throughout the movie. But she gets the last laugh by finding love in a seedy jazz bar and singing It Had to Be You. I love Marla Hooch. I would do the entire episode about Marla Hooch.
Marla Hooch does win the movie. In many ways, yeah.
I love her so much that I almost named my last band Marla Hooch.
That would be an amazing band name. No joke.
I was outvoted. I'm still salty about it.
Well, if you ever get another pet in your life, You should name it
Marla
Marla
Hooch
Hooch.
the dog. Well, that seems kind
Or
of fucked
cat.
up, actually.
Oh, it does.
What a hitter.
Oh, it does. Okay. Well, maybe, I don't know, a cat or,
Like a
but
fish.
yeah, but yes, great band name.
Yes. At third base, Rosie O'Donnell as Doris Murphy, Tracy Reiner, the director's own daughter, as Betty Spaghetti in left field, Biddy Schramm as Evelyn Gardner, and she's the mother of Stillwell Angel. She's also the woman who has trouble finding her head. It's that lump 5 feet above her ass. 5 feet. That would make her so tall. And last but not least, in center field is All the Way May Mortabito, played by the legend herself, Madonna.
I don't know why you bother getting dressed at all.
We got a lot of catchphrases in this episode. This movie is amazing.
It's a tight script. Yeah.
It's an incredible script. And the team is managed by alcoholic and marathon pisser Jimmy Dugan, played by Tom Hanks. Dugan was in the majors and washed out in spectacular fashion, and he's not too thrilled to be managing a team of, gasp, girls. The season plays out with plenty of interpersonal drama. Kit and Dottie are in constant competition. Doris has a guy back home who she doesn't like because he's mean to her, and not at all because she's gay, because she isn't. Why would you ever think that? Betty Spaghetti's husband dies in war, which provides my scorchingest take of the movie, which you'll hear a little bit later. And Madonna is there for the weirdly sexual comic relief.
You know what? Madonna's whole little spiel, like when they're talking about shutting down the baseball team.
I'm not going to go back to Taxi Dancing, that one.
Yeah, that whole little spiel is like, maybe this is a scorching hot take. Maybe this is controversial, but I'm not sure it really like aligns with like everything else her character does in the movie.
I kind of think that is funny. I think that speech is like a little bit funny.
Like she doesn't want to. I think she just overacts it.
Yeah, which to me, giving the movie the benefit of the doubt at least, might be on purpose, but maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she just doesn't want to have to, like, she wants everything to be her choice in terms of sexual encounters and nudity.
Why would that? What a crazy idea.
Yeah. I think I was just mostly reacting to Madonna's complete overacting of that scene.
I think so. She's pretty big in that. And at one point, Evelyn blows a throw and Jimmy yells at her until she cries, which is where we get the movie's most iconic line and the title of our guest of the week, Erin Carlson's book, No Crying in Baseball. But the musical moment that we're here to talk about this week comes from All the Way May herself. Madonna contributes the end credits song, This Used to Be My Playground.
Let's listen a little bit to This Used to Be My Playground before we talk about it.
This used to be my playground. This used to be my childhood dream. This used to be the place I ran to whenever I was in need of a friend. Why did it have to end? And why do they always say?
Can I quickly tell you my first memory of This Used to Be My Playground?
Sure.
Even before I saw the movie.
Yeah.
I was at a birthday party. I think I was 10, something like that. And the birthday party had karaoke. And the karaoke had, like, you know those visualizations that don't line up with whatever the song is?
Oh, yeah. It's like a sunset or something.
Yes. And so all I remember was someone was singing This Used to Be My Playground, and the visualization was just a woman in a pink one piece, like swimming in the pool.
Right
Just
on.
it was like the camera was kind of directly over her, and she's just like gliding along in the pool underwater. And for months, years, something, I just associated that image with this incredible song about that, like, is like matched on screen with the baseball scene for this movie.
What a bizarre visualization.
It's very confusing for me at 10. It's just, it's like, this is random. And also, like, I didn't realize it was Madonna because this is a very non-Madonna song for the time period. And
It's
even,
definitely against type.
Yeah, and because Madonna, as I'll say later in the episode when we talk with Erin, is not typically thought to be a ballad singer, even though I personally like this ballad. I think she sells it. I've always liked the song. It elicits the nostalgia and the bittersweet heartache that I think it wants to.
I don't completely think that Madonna is not a ballad person, especially because of her work with Dick Tracy, and she sang Sooner or Later, which was, I think, nominated for an Oscar, maybe won an Oscar. And that is like also kind of a sultry ballad, but that was a work that did its best to feel of a certain time period. And This Used to Be My Playground, the film starts and ends in the contemporary time, and I think it's like 1988. And so what we're seeing is not what we primarily saw for the entire movie, which was like the 40s, but instead a more modern song. So it feels like slightly out of place, but when you kind of examine it in the context of the thing that you're watching, it like does fit in. It's an interesting musical moment for sure.
It's like it's a real tonal shift. And in the music video, we see a man paging through a photo album with Madonna appearing on every page. And the photo album paired with the way that the song is used in the film, where over the end credits, there are scenes from the 40s with the actors playing baseball and like their younger selves. And then there are the older actors playing baseball where they've reunited. And then you get scenes of the actual older,
the real
like
players,
the real players from the All-American Girls League. And it could actually be confusing, but somehow it works. And there's a poignancy. I like it. I don't know why. I was even struggling to come up with like an argument about why this is good and why it works and why I like it. But I honestly am a little bit at a loss because I don't even really know. It's just my heartstrings are pulled.
No, I'm completely with you. And there is something really puzzling. We also can look at the context of the song, and it's like, it is like super bittersweet and implies in a way that I think the rest of the movie, the text of the movie, does not imply that this is over, that this is a thing that we're never going to get back. When the movie itself ends with them being honored at the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is like significantly different than it's an interesting thing, not too dissimilar to Billie Eilish's song for the Barbie soundtrack, which is this kind of breathy ballad that has taken on a life of its own. I think that the Billie Eilish song is like slightly better.
Yeah, it's better.
But yeah, it's like they are not dissimilar from each other.
I really like that comparing. That's a good comparison. So This Used to Be My Playground was written by Madonna as she was recording her fifth studio album, Erotica, which is just like a total
whiplash.
Whiplash, tonal whiplash. And she co-wrote it with Vogue producer Shep Pettibone. And Columbia Records asked Madonna, who was starring in the film, to write something for the movie. She and Pettibone apparently turned the song around in just 2 days.
Oh boy.
Which is quite quick, but I guess they were already in songwriting mode, so they just maybe had to put themselves in like a different mindset because they were already writing. That's my guess, that they were just like, oh, okay, got it. Like,
churn another one out.
Just churn it out. And during an interview in 1992 with The Guardian, Madonna described the process as, quote, assignment writing, since it was totally separate from her erotica sessions. And in that same interview with The Guardian, Madonna called A League of Their Own, quote, cute, adding, it's not Gone with the Wind, it's not Dr. Zhivago, it's no work of art. It's entertaining.
Thanks,
Yeah, it's entertaining, light. There's some funny moments. It's very sweet. I mean, the true story is fascinating and amazing, but I think it's been candy coated.
So Madonna has a history or has a reputation at this time of being obsessed with old Hollywood. Just take a listen to the lyrics to Vogue, right? She's like name dropping all of these 40s and 50s bombshells that she like emulates. She emulated it in Dick Tracy. And so it's interesting that she's like, well, it's not the two greatest movies ever made, but I guess I'll write a song for this movie. And I think that that's part of this, like, I don't know, what's the opposite of recency bias, where like you don't realize the historical significance of the thing you're making because like you're just making it, where you're just like you're just a person writing a song for a movie. And I don't know if you can think of it as this is going to be the next Gone with the Wind, or else you're like building up expectations in your head that are never going to be realized.
I mean, I haven't like worked on a film set, but I think like when you're in the midst of creating anything, you really don't want to think about what the reaction's going to be.
You're splitting rocks. You're making sandwiches.
So This Used to Be My Playground was released as a standalone single on June 15th, 92. It is not on the movie's official soundtrack due to contractual obligations, and it's probably got something to do with the fact that Madonna was signed to Warner Brothers and the soundtrack was coming out on Columbia.
However, this song, as you said, was June 15th. Mm-hmm. The movie doesn't come out until July 1st. So even though the song isn't on the official soundtrack, it's still, the release still kind of coincides with like a marketing push.
Yes, so it's kind of staged.
Yeah.
And This Used to Be My Playground did get added to an Olympics-inspired Barcelona Gold compilation album, which came out later that summer, and it later landed on Madonna's 95 Ballads comp, Something to Remember. Lyrically, This Used to Be My Playground is a poignant, slow ballad about childhood nostalgia, and that meshes nicely with the coming-of-age themes within the film, and experience something formative and character building, and that thing, which in this case is playing women's ball in the 1940s, it ultimately ends because the actual league ended in what, 1953?
Something like that, 53, 54.
54?
But it was dwindling, right?
Yep.
When the boys came back from war, there was no need for the girls to be playing a man's game anymore.
I could especially see how in the 50s I could see it lasting throughout the 40s, because after like 1945 you have all of this like all these recent war memories, and I feel like the winning of the war and the celebration probably
post-war euphoria.
Yeah, the post-war euphoria. Everyone wants to be active and do what makes them happy and so on, and probably that mood just like carries over for the next 5-6 years, and then you get well into the 50s where society really doubles down on asking women, not so much ask, but telling women to go back into the kitchen. Hey, look at this cool new gadget you could have in your kitchen, and in your living room. Don't you want to buy this washing machine? All this stuff, and don't you just want to be a homemaker? Don't you just?
And we're also in the middle of the baby boom, so all these men come home, they impregnate their girlfriends and wives, and as we know from Evelyn, like no man would ever be considered to be responsible for their child, and so these girls can't play baseball anymore because the patriarchy has tied them, ball and chain tied them to the house.
Unless you're Dottie, who wants to have kids. And I feel like that want is totally genuine.
Yeah, I think so too. Dottie is unfortunately, annoyingly, the person that is great at everything and beautiful while doing it. And to Kit's dismay, is the best at everything, including probably being a mother.
Yeah. So for the rest of the soundtrack, music supervisor Jay Landers worked with Penny Marshall to find more, quote, contemporary artists to sing songs from the era, because the movie takes place over the 1943-44 season. So Carole King had already written the movie's original opening song, Now and Forever. Billy Joel covered Duke Ellington's In a Sentimental Mood. James Taylor provided a cover of 1933's It's Only a Paper Moon. And Art Garfunkel covered Two Sleepy People, a 1938 song with music written by Hoagy Carmichael and lyrics by Frank Loesser.
And this is like just the easy listening classics of the 80s. James Taylor, Billy Joel, Art Garfunkel, like there isn't a ton of like life and energy in these musical choices.
And you barely even hear those songs in the film. I mean, the most prominent of these has to be Now and Forever, because it really does like set the stage as older Dottie is heading off to meet up with her former teammates. But yeah, like when you hear Billy Joel and Art Garfunkel, these songs are very in the background. They are
musty dusty,
passive listening, diegetic. No one's paying attention to them. And so I actually found kind of a funny anecdote about This Used to Be My Playground's official music video, which premiered on June 30th. And as we mentioned, it features a man looking through a photo album. The pages contain different snippets of Madonna singing. And apparently the video bore resemblance to Boy George's music video for his 1987 single To Be Reborn. And in George's video, he also appears on pages of a photo album performing the song. And George himself later stated in his autobiography that he was, quote, furious after watching Madonna's clip, and he renamed it This Used to Be My Video.
That rules.
Yeah.
I love that the two biggest like pro LGBT artists of the 80s are just like sniping at each other. That rules.
That's pretty bitchy.
Yeah.
It does bear mentioning, I think, that Madonna has never once performed This Used to Be My Playground, and she
never.
And she seems disinterested in being associated with it at that time, presumably because it clashed so much with her erotica era, which came along with her photo book Sex.
Madonna is such an interesting figure at this moment because she is got these two wolves inside her of wanting to be this like classic dame, but also wanting to be like, I'm young, I'm forever, I'm the face of Generation X, right?
Yeah.
And whenever she does one thing, then she like seems to swing back into the other direction really heavily. And so, yeah, so she does This Used to Be My Playground, and then she does erotica, the book Sex, the Blonde Ambition tour, like all this stuff, the documentary Truth or Dare, where she's just like a wild child. It's an interesting time for her.
As you've said before, Aviv, weaponized ADHD.
For sure. And I think that she, at least if you watch the documentary, she like kind of resents different versions of her old self. And like she's like dating Warren Beatty at the time, and Warren Beatty like shows up at one of the tours and she's like making fun of him for being old. It's really weird. And also, like, I know Madonna as an adult woman. Like I wasn't really conscious around this time when she was pushing all these boundaries. Yeah. And so I'm like, this lady, it was this wild. And so it's like an interesting thing for me to wrap my head around too.
I will say I heard a funny story from my spin days. I had a coworker who went to a listening party of Madonna's in New York, and he just idolized her, and understandably so. What pop music fan doesn't idolize Madonna? Yeah. And he came back and we were all like, how was it? And he was like, it was great.
Uh-oh.
She wasn't like, because he said, I don't know what like the rest of the interaction was like. I wasn't there, but he said something like, he got to say maybe one thing to her, and he was like, your music has meant so much to me. Thank you. And I think he said that she responded with something like, my music has meant a lot to a lot of people.
Weird.
And I was just like, aw. And
she has always
but
had
that's so on brand.
Yeah, she's had an interesting relationship with her own fame, for sure.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And I think we can leave it there.
That's another discussion for another episode. So let's talk quickly about This Used to Be My Playground and its chart performance. It was a hit in 92.
Despite never being performed live.
Mm-hmm. Madonna did earn a Golden Globe nomination for Best Original Song. It did go to number 1 on the Hot 100, and it became Madonna's 10th chart-topping single, breaking her tie with Whitney Houston to become the female artist with the most number 1 singles at that time. Whitney would come back, though. She later tied with Madonna in the fall of 92 with her cover of I Will Always Love You,
which was the biggest song on the face of the planet.
Yeah, I would say that has in every possible way outlasted This Used to Be My Playground.
And famously, Penny Marshall, the director of A League of Their Own, wasn't a huge fan of This Used to Be My Playground and didn't think it would be a hit. Similar to the things that Madonna said about the movie, Penny was like, whatever, it's going to be a whatever. And then when it went to number 1, she basically shrugged it off and was like, well, what do I know? For more on Penny Marshall, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll call in the righty for some relief pitching. Erin Carlson, the writer of No Crying in Baseball, The Inside Story of A League of Their Own, Big Stars, Dugout Drama, and A Home Run for Hollywood, joins us to talk about the behind-the-scenes madness that helped create this 90s classic.
I'm Erin Carlson, writer of No Crying in Baseball.
Hello, Erin.
Hi.
Thank you so much for spending a little time with us, telling us about your book, and we're just so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, Erin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your connection to A League of Their Own? Like, when did you first see it? What made you want to start writing about it?
So I am an elder millennial, and I remember life before the internet and when everybody would go and see the same movie in the theater. So one of those movies that we all saw in 1992 was A League of Their Own. And my friends and I from middle school watched it as a group, and we loved it. None of us played baseball. Very few girls played baseball then and now, but we really connected to the female camaraderie, the friendship, that victory song that annoyed the crew members on the movie, but we loved and we sang at recess. And we loved that these characters, these girl ball players, were funny and annoying and mouthy and loud and really, really good at baseball. All of the things that girls weren't allowed to be on the big screen at the time, and it was just refreshing. It was just a refreshing, funny, epic, great movie. So it checked off so many boxes for me as a writer.
I will say that I personally have like a mental block when it comes to sports themed entertainment. And there's a lot of popular zeitgeisty shows and movies that I just haven't seen because it won't hold my attention. Even if the person recommending it to me is like, but it's not, it's about football, but it's not about football. I'm just like, it's got a field and it's got players. It's about football. But I love A League of Their, because it's the writing is so quick, snappy. I was just rewatching it last night with like kind of a new vision, because I had read a lot of interviews that you've already done to promote the book. And I was like telling my husband these little like behind the scenes, like Gina Davis almost wasn't in the movie. And Madonna wasn't apparently all that like thrilled about the song she contributed, and so on and so on. But it is such a fun classic movie. But I also really can't wait to get into some of the areas that maybe could have been more progressive, because I think it was hailed as such a progressive piece of media at the time. But then there are things that even were held back just for the sake of marketing. So I'm excited to talk to you about that.
Oh, yes.
It's usually my job on the pod to like research the backstory and the crazy making of moments of the film. So I'm super glad that we have a real expert here. We wanted to know, like, what was your journey to going from being a fan of the film to realizing or discovering that there's enough story from behind the scenes to fill a book?
Oh, yeah, that's the tricky part. Am I going to have enough to fill 275 pages, of a book about one movie? My journey with that is just to do more interviews than I have time. Like, I did 120 interviews for this book, and that's too many. For a book like this, you really need 35, 40 interviews, but I just overdo it, just pulling the best details as possible from a wide variety of sources, so that in my anxious journalistic mind, I can have backup storage for a book like this. But I also knew there was good stories within it. There was Madonna at the height of her Madonna-ness. Like, she was really the Taylor Swift of her time. Blonde Ambition was Eras. I was really attracted to the challenge of delving into this pop star at her peak. And also, Tom Hanks was at a crossroads. He was essentially box office poison at the time. He had done 5 flops after Big, and nobody was exactly jumping up and down to cast him as Jimmy Dugan. But, he wanted to gain weight. He wanted to play rude and crude and just the opposite of everything we know about Tom Hanks. And Penny persuaded the studio to cast him, and the rest is history. And that secondary role as Jimmy Dugan really catapulted his extraordinary winning streak. Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, Saving Private Ryan. And Jimmy Dugan really reignited Tom Hanks' career. So there was that story too. And also the history of the league, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. I mean, I'm a history nerd, a little bit of a nonfiction dad.
Sure.
I love reading about World War II, and I just wanted to write about that era too.
Me too, though. I think I was super, super quick little anecdote. I was once interviewing a pretty famous musician at her house, and she had a great documentary made about her, and she referenced it and was like, "Have you seen it?" And I was like, "Oh, I haven't actually." And she's like, "I understand. It's work." She was like, "I like watching documentaries about like alien sightings or something." And I was like, "I like watching documentaries about World War II."
Oh my gosh. And I love her, and bless her. She understands how it works. Yeah, I loved kind of delving into that history and nerding out over that. There were so many rabbit holes to jump into. And this book really reaches a lot of people. There's the queer history from behind the scenes that never really made it on the big screen, because a lot of the original players, a large number, were lesbians. And Penny Marshall totally, hid that, underneath the surface of the movie and just erased that history. I think possibly out of a fear that acknowledging the queer history would affect box office sales. And it was that's not an excuse. It was a different time back then.
Right.
Everyone was a little more cautious.
I did read a great discussion in, I think it was an interview with Shondaland, where you delved into the lost queer history within the baseball league. And you also start to touch on race and how I think Penny Marshall attempted to course correct, but then still something was lost. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, specifically like the woman that they cast in the film to throw the ball to Gina Davis, who was Black and obviously couldn't be on the team?
That was such an amazing scene and a great acknowledgement of the racial exclusion within the league. But that wasn't in the original script. Lori Petty, early on in production, approached Penny and was like, "Look, I'm not comfortable with the fact that Black women weren't allowed to play in the league. We need to acknowledge that." And Penny was like, yeah, why not? That's my bad Penny Marshall impression. And she was like, yeah, why not add this? The writers are always adding things. So Babaloo Mandel and Lowell Gans, iconic comic duo, screenwriting duo from the late 80s, they added that scene, and it was 30 seconds. But it was still extremely powerful. And to this day, it remains one of the actresses, crew members' favorite scenes. It just stands out.
It's one of the most memorable scenes in the film too, even though it lasts such a short period of time.
Right.
Let's kind of do like a beat by beat of how this movie gets to the big screen. So it bounced around the studios for a minute before it gets set up at Sony.
Yes. Getting this film to the big screen was an uphill battle. Penny Marshall became the first woman to hit 100 million at the box office with Big. And then she had like a critical hit with Awakenings, the first drama she ever directed.
Saddest movie of all time.
I know. I remember my mom crying at the final scene where De Niro was dancing. Oh my God. That just kills me. So Penny was in demand. She had the Marshall touch. She knew where the comedy was and also where the heart was. And audiences responded. At the same time, nobody in Hollywood wanted to make the women's baseball movie. They were like, okay, this league ended in 1954. There was a reason for that. Nobody wanted to go see games anymore, apparently. And also, women don't play baseball. What's the audience for this? But they really wanted to work with Penny. She wasn't just a hot woman director at the time. She was a hot director. So they were like, okay, come over to Columbia. We'll let you make the girls' movie. So they do the movie, and the budget was exploding. Like people in Hollywood were like, oh my God. People were like, is Penny going to pull this off? Because she was a talented filmmaker, but she was also known for being extremely expensive. She rolled as much as 2 million feet of film. She won. She reached this milestone at Kodak, and somebody estimated that she rolled enough film that could wrap around Manhattan 3 times. And also they were $3 million in the hole as soon as they started filming, because they paid off Deborah Winger to leave the movie over a casting dispute.
Let's cock Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger and Madonna, apparently, or rather, Deborah Winger was hesitant. I'm trying to be diplomatic about working with Madonna.
I have a quote. So this is from Penny and an interview that she did before she passed with Kevin Smith, because they were neighbors, I guess. And he just sat with her for 8 hours and recorded her stories. But she said that Deborah Winger came to her and said, I didn't realize that you were doing an Elvis picture, and walked. And I guess that means that it wasn't going to be taken seriously, and that the musicians weren't going to act very well, I guess was the implication. Because Deborah Winger was very famous for beaches and that kind of thing. But yeah, so Deborah Winger walks as a direct result of Madonna being cast.
Yeah. Well, okay, Deborah Winger was an extremely prestigious actress at the time. In terms of endearment, officer and a gentleman, people loved her. Every mom in America was obsessed with Deborah Winger. However, inside Hollywood, she had a reputation for being extremely difficult. It took her forever to decide whether she wanted to do a film. And once she decided to do it, she made things difficult for a lot of people, not leaving her trailer, arguments with other cast members. So she did not want to share screen time with Madonna. She was afraid that, it would become an Elvis movie, and Madonna's presence in the movie would tarnish the quality. So she goes to Penny. She's like, I'm going to make this, if you cast her, I'm going to make this a long, hot summer. and Penny was like, nobody tells me how to cast my movie. So yeah, they fired Deborah and paid her $3 million. But I think Deborah won a league of their own. I just feel like everybody wins. And then Gina Davis steps in.
Career making for her.
Right. I can't picture anyone else as Dottie Hinson. She was amazing.
But the interesting thing about this is they cast Lori Petty because of her physical resemblance to Deborah Winger, and now Winger walks, and Lori Petty's like, well, I don't look like Gina, and so they have to dye her hair. We have the eye color problem. So it created a bunch of other ripple effects in the movie beyond just Deborah Winger walking.
Oh yeah, Lori. When Deborah Winger left, the Rockford Peaches were like, "Oh my God, my captain, leaving," and they were devastated because they all thought they were going to get fired. But Penny is loyal. She was always going to keep Lori, even though Lori looks nothing like Gina Davis. So they gave her that copper, Prince Valiant half wig that Lori hated.
Yeah.
That sort of
does not hold
Gina's
up.
hair color.
Yeah.
And there was an awkward tension between the two that Penny didn't love. They sort of moved awkwardly around each other in front of the camera, and apart, they were more comfortable.
Does that not work well though? Because there's a tension, but it's of course they come back together and they have a renewed understanding. I do love the coming of age aspect of this movie in terms of friendships and moving out of your hometown and kind of finding your adult self. But also I feel like they have this interesting arc with that tension where they have a lot of resentment towards it. Well, it's mostly Kit's resentment towards Dottie, and then that kind of gets resolved. But for most of the movie, I feel like the tension helps that along.
Absolutely. And Lori poured her insecurities into that character. I feel like her performance is underrated. But here she was, Point Break hadn't come out yet. Nobody saw her being awesome on a surfboard with Keanu. She was a nobody, and she felt like she was a nobody. And she was third build in the movie, but she got John Lovitz's salary. She just felt overshadowed. And here was Gina, this, Glamazon Oscar winner. And so I feel like that worked for Laurie. You just felt that. And with that, that scene where she's hyperventilating in a dugout,
Yeah.
covering her face with the mitt.
Yeah.
That was really her. She went straight on Daniel Day-Lewis for those scenes. She wanted them to be perfect. She wanted to get it right. And she really did hit that ball, that game-winning ball to win the pennant for Racine. That was her, all her.
I would love to talk about like the use of the ball and the baseball playing in a second. Because I think that is where, not that it's a competition, but I think that where the Amazon series fails is it's pretty obvious that the actors aren't that good at baseball. And I think that that's like a stumbling block that Penny made sure wasn't going to happen in her film. But Madonna is our subject of the week. And I'd love to talk about the casting of Madonna herself, because she wasn't the first choice for that role either.
No, the first choice for All the Way May, Mortebito, she was envisioned as a brassy Californian Mae West type. So that role went to Lindsay Frost, former television actress turned baseball mom that left the business. But she had to drop out of the movie because she was attached to star in a pilot. So Penny lost her May, and she was like, oh, now I have to start over again. She was reading a magazine interview, a profile of Madonna, where Madonna expressed her desire to become a movie star, which really wasn't a secret.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
Right. No, not a secret at all. Penny had an amazing eye for casting, and she liked to play around with things. She even tested Pat Riley to play Jimmy Dugan. So she was like, let me test Madonna. So she met with Madonna, and Madonna, she had her eye on Kit Keller, a bigger role.
Mm-hmm.
And Penny's like, I don't think you can carry a movie, Mo. So I think you got to be part of the ensemble. And Madonna is just total overachiever, perfectionist. Yep. And she takes the gig because she gets to be in a movie with Gina Davis, who had won an Oscar for Accidental Tourist, for Tom Hanks, who'd had a series of flops, but hey, he's a beloved film star, the Jimmy Stewart, America's Dad of our time. So and it was a challenge. Every actress in Hollywood wanted this role, because how rare was it to play a woman baseball player? Right. That just never happens.
I think sometimes there can be like a hidden uphill challenge for singers who want to be actors, and because especially if they're very, very famous in singing, it's almost like, I'm not saying there's an entitlement, but there's almost like an expectation that they should be just sort of cast sight unseen because they've already achieved so much in one field. But it's definitely like, it serves them best to kind of start in the middle, where a cameo or
And Madonna had been in Desperately Seeking Susan, where she is more of a lead, and she's not as good in that movie as she is in this one. In A League of Their Own, she like jumps off the screen and she does kind of melt into the rest of the Peaches in such a great way. I think some of it's the hair and the costuming and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that Penny knew how to cast people and knew how to basically, like, you don't talk back to Penny Marshall.
No. I mean, and Madonna just wants the director's approval. So she was willing to do whatever it took, and Hollywood was wary of her potential to carry a film, but they did want to capitalize on her popularity. And that was Penny's stroke of genius. So they get to filming, but first they rehearse. And Madonna works harder than anyone has ever seen anyone work in their lives. She gets up at 4 a.m. and jogs 8 to 10 miles a day. Somebody once saw her jogging on the coast of Lake Michigan. And then she'd go to baseball rehearsals, batting practice. And she's like, anyone who stays here until we can't see the ball, I'm buying you dinner. So she kind of made everyone else raise their game because they don't want to disappoint Madonna. who's Lori Petty called the Empire State Building. She's like, I can't call you Madonna. To me, you're the Empire State Building. You're iconic. So, and then Madonna would do rehearsals for the Buckets dance sequence afterwards. So she was really like, I mean, her work ethic was on point for sure.
And so she was great at a lot of things. Baseball was not necessarily one of them.
No.
And so she is paired up with another cast member as like a duo. And that is reflected, it's not like a mystery. That's reflected on screen too, that she and Rosie are paired up as like an Abbott and Costello number. But that also was true behind the scenes too, that Rosie taught her how to play ball.
Absolutely. They were called Ro and Mo on set. I think it was too much effort to say their full names for Penny. And she was like, Ro and Mo. She's like, Ro, you teach Mo how to play ball. Mo, you teach Ro how to set her hair.
Having listened to a bunch of interviews of Penny Marshall to prepare for this, your impression is like pretty good. It's like, I would say A to A minus Penny Marshall impression.
It's like your whole body shifts and you become a different person.
It's so funny because over like all my interview, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be riding high on that compliment all day. But like over the course of many interviews for this book, everyone did an unsolicited Penny impression. So I sort of picked it up too. but back to Ro and Mo. So they really bonded. They really bonded on the set of this film. Rosie was initially intimidated by Madonna, but she had seen Truth or Dare before meeting her. And she was like, okay, I connect with this woman. We have the same background. They both lost their mothers to breast cancer when they were very young. And they both came from big, noisy, middle-class Catholic families. And Rosie could stand up to Madonna.
Yeah.
She could handle Madonna. Madonna was terrifying for these girls from the Midwest who were in the movie, who played the ringers, the girls who could actually play baseball. She would just try to get a rise out of them, try to provoke them. It was all about shock value with her. But Rosie wasn't, she could roll with that. She was also not a threat to Madonna. So she wasn't like Ellen Sue, the beauty queen, and she wasn't like Gina Davis, basically who started out as a model before she became a celebrated actress. So how do I say this diplomatically? Rosie's, she's an every woman. And she wasn't a threat to Madonna, who was competitive with other women. In essence, I think she was a mother figure for Madonna. And to fill the void of her mother's death, I think Madonna collected mother figures her entire life. Debbie Mazar is one of them for sure. And Rosie was another one. And just the best friend you could ever want. Madonna's still making headlines to this day. And I think people would rather Madonna just, lock herself in her home and never leave and never keep trying to make music. I think people are harsh about her unfairly. But Rosie's always on Instagram defending her. And it's really great to see. Like, everyone should have a friend like Rosie.
I really like watching old Rosie interview clips. Her comedy too. She was really ahead of the curve in realizations that I think collectively we have about pop culture a bit like too late or after the fact. This is top of mind because of that 70s show reevaluation that we're all doing this week. And
rough.
There was a Rosie there was a Rosie, I don't want to get too into it, but there was a Rosie interview that was like trending on TikTok or whatever. And Rosie's talking with Ashton and Mila before they were married. And Ashton is talking about how he and Danny Masterson are like pranking everyone on set. And it comes off about like their first kiss, like Mila and Ashton's first kiss, and how he's gonna like basically like stick his tongue down this 15-year-old's throat, like, and not even, and like Danny put him up to it. And then Rosie was just like, well, every actor has a different process, but like her face and her tone just say everything.
Yeah, Rosie, especially on her show, did not suffer fools. Even when she was in the closet, she couldn't really, or didn't really ever pretend like she liked someone she didn't like, or that something was funny when it wasn't funny. She was always, as you said, the every woman. And I think that that's like part of her super huge appeal.
Do you remember when Tom Selleck was on her talk show and he was the celebrity ambassador for the NRA?
No.
Oh, and she went after him. Yes.
She did. And her career suffered from that. Like she got some backlash for speaking out, but this was around Columbine. So when I interviewed her for this book, this is how serious I can be. Like, I'm playful and into celebrity fandoms, but I was like, Rosie, thank you for speaking out for us. Because I was in high school at the time and nobody else was talking like this. And she was the most popular daytime talk show of that era besides Oprah. So, I mean, I think she's cool. I'll always be a Rosie fan.
Same. I think she's really underrated in our present day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's ahead of it.
While we're on the topic of Rosie O'Donnell, there was some interview clip that has been making its way around the internet of her talking about the scene where she is describing her boyfriend who is not nice to her, and he's ugly and treats her bad and
unemployed
and how Penny, after a couple of takes, like kind of marched up to Rosie and says, "Ro, this isn't one of those gay movies." And kind of made her tone it down because that was essentially Rosie's character coming out.
Oh, yeah. That was the whole subtext. She was explaining why she stayed with her deadbeat boyfriend. She was like, because I was the weird girl, you know, and I didn't fit in. And now, you know, and now I do. And we're all right. And she rips up his photo and throws it out the window. And Keller is like nodding in agreement. Like a lot of queer audiences also related to that scene and sensed the subtext. And Rosie felt that her character, Doris Murphy, was gay and in love with May and didn't know what to do with those feelings and didn't know that those feelings meant that she was gay. And so she recited the monologue as Gans and Mendel had written it. And Penny goes, Ro. Rosie goes, what? She's like, stop doing it that way. It's not a gay thing. And Rosie understood that character as Penny could not, and just recited it the same way. And I think it's a really powerful scene that resonates to this day. But I also think that Penny was afraid to acknowledge the history. She was afraid that it would damage sales. And, you know, she was one of the Peaches, Renee Coleman told me, she wasn't gay. She was in a boys' club. I think that Penny didn't understand why that would be important to Rosie or to, you know, women who play ball who happen to be gay.
And I understand the idea of like incrementalism, right? Like it's a miracle that the girls' baseball movie even gets made. So Penny's not going to poison the water by making it about a gay girls' baseball team. Like that's crazy. But like clearly, you know, our society has progressed, maybe not far enough, but has progressed a little bit that the Amazon series deals almost exclusively with the LGBTQ side of the All-American Girls Baseball League. And spoilers, minor spoilers for the Amazon show, the single best scene in the entire series, Rosie shows up.
Oh, yeah. She shows up, and she was the only one who Abby Jacobson called upon. And so she was playing this queer speakeasy owner. You know, she owned this bar where gay people could come and congregate and be safe at a really homophobic time in America that still continues. So Rosie, I feel like she was playing, she wasn't reprising Doris, but playing an entirely new character. But it was ultimately a devastating, you know, arc that she had because the bar, spoiler alert, was raided and had to shut down. You know, I thought that the TV series it didn't have the pizzazz of the movie or that cartoonish humor, but it did delve into the real history of the league and centered these queer characters and their struggles to be themselves and do the sport that they love. And the prices that they had to pay to do that, like they really had to go to charm school. I love that the charm school sequences are in every iteration
Yes.
of this IP franchise.
Yeah. So in the book, and since our episode is also partially about Madonna's This Used to Be My Playground, I wanted to know to what extent did any discussion of the song come into it? Yeah. And what are your thoughts on This Used to Be My Playground in Madonna's catalog? Because I get the sense, as we were rewatching the movie last night, my husband says, "Oh, I forgot that Madonna even sang this song." And I feel like that is largely and I feel like Madonna too would like to forget that she ever sang this song.
I mean, people love this song. People who are reading my book, they're like, "Oh, this is my favorite Madonna song." My favorite Madonna song is Cherish. Give me some bubblegum pop. Stereo Gum called This Used to Be My Playground a morose torch ballad.
Yeah.
And to me, its lyrics evoke nostalgia and regrets. Like, why did it have to end? Like, why did this, baseball league have to end? Like, it was just so, it could be she's singing about a breakup, but it could be about leaving the league. It was just cryptic enough that it could be both. And so she and Shep Pettibone, her producer, and he was really talented. He produced Vogue, which we all know. So they were in the midst of creating her deep house concept album, very underrated album called Erotica. When they got a call from Amy Pascal at Columbia, she's like, "Could you write a song for the movie?" So they halted work on Erotica to write this song.
That's what we call a hard pivot.
It's a hard pivot because this song has nothing to do with erotica. Like, erotica is sensual and cutting edge. And this is a wholesome movie that's subversively cutting edge.
Yeah.
But it's a wholesome family film, which is how it was marketed. So, and Shep Pettibone has nothing to do with that. This guy's cool. He was like the Jack Antonoff of his day, the Jack Antonoff to Madonna's Taylor Swift. So what are they doing writing this song? And he had never worked with actual instruments before. So they had an orchestra and they didn't like the strings. And so they had to rework the arrangement and rush to finish the song so that Madonna could hop on a plane and go to the set of Body of Evidence, her erotic film.
We didn't need Body of Evidence.
So the song hits Penny Marshall's desk, so to speak, in post-production of the film. And she brings all the editors into her office. She's like, "What do you think?" She's like, "I hate this song. This song's a piece of crap. There's no way this is going in my movie." A second later, Amy Pascal, a studio executive at Columbia, calls. She's like, "Don't you love the song? It's great. I can't wait to use it in the end credits." And Madonna was smart enough to send it to Amy and the studio before Penny had a chance to veto it. Because she knew Penny wouldn't like it, because Penny's the most negative person ever. So Penny had a fight with the studio about putting it in over the end credits. But of course, the studio won. It's Madonna.
Didn't Penny want, I'm putting contemporary in quotes because these are not contemporary singers even really for the era, because she wanted what, in her view, contemporary singers like Carole King and James Taylor and Art Garfunkel to sing a couple. I think Carole King's song was an original, and it was like nominated for a Grammy and so on, whereas This Used to Be My Playground, I think, was only nominated for a Golden Globe. But ostensibly the Carole King song was more commercially successful or whatever. But Penny, I think, went after some slightly older artists, to create songs that sounded like they came from the 30s or the 40s, right? And here you have this Madonna song that is pretty 1992, 1992 slow ballad. It's very tonally at odds, I think, with the rest of the songs and the artists and there aren't many that Penny sought for the film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Penny was she grew up in the 50s. Her version of contemporary was James Taylor.
Right.
And Art Garfunkel, who she dated. So she didn't really have her finger on the pulse of pop music.
Art Garfunkel's a weird guy, man.
yeah, it's such a weird pairing. Like Paul Simon and Carrie Fisher, I get.
I get it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I understand that.
That
But
being said, like I think
yeah.
that it works so well over the end credits.
I do too.
I really like it. I was going to come out in defense of This Used to Be My Playground. I know that Madonna is not what you would first think of as a ballad singer. Her voice has never been her selling point, but she's got charisma and she really does know how to sell something. And I love the placement of this song that is really selling the heartache that something has ended. And like just a few scenes earlier, you hear that certain characters are no longer with us, like Jimmy Dugan, and Stillwell's mother has passed. And you see, like, I think it's the real life All American Girl players.
It's like
playing.
half and half. Right?
Yeah.
It's like scenes interspliced that are real, but and then some of the actors. But I feel like it really works, and it's like it's a time capsule, but it moves me, and I like it as a Madonna song, even if it's not her usual thing, especially for that era.
I like it because it's not her usual thing. You know, it's like her version of Lady Gaga partnering with Tony Bennett. I didn't expect that. You threw me a curveball, and it works over those very bittersweet scenes of the actual women playing a real game. I think it works beautifully and better than Carole King's Now and Forever, which was supposed to be over those rolling credits.
And Madonna has had a history of like doing kind of a pastiche of a different era, right? She did Sooner or Later for Dick Tracy, and you know that also has varying levels of goodness and success, but it's like she too was like obsessed with that era of filmmaking and old Hollywood. And so I think even though it feels kind of 90s-y, there is that torch song ballad 40s Marla Hooch singing It Had to Be You.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Singing to Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh my gosh, iconic. Well, the music video for This Used to Be My Playground, it's kind of a throwback too. Like she's, you know, going through her photo album. She's got the Hedy Lamarr hair, and it's very haunting. The song is haunting, and I remember like singing it with my friends, and I just responded to the angst. Like it spoke to my tweenage angst. And it became her 10th number one single, which Penny was like, it's not gonna track. But yeah, it was her 10th number one single, but it was not on the League of Their Own album because of a contract issue. But it ended up on this album called Barcelona Gold, which was a compilation album for the 1992 Olympics.
So weird.
And then later,
weird.
I think it appeared on a 1995 ballads compilation
of her thing.
For Madonna's. But yeah, I guess I figured that because Madonna was technically on Warner Brothers, no, and then
something like that.
This album would have come out on Columbia.
I'm guessing that if the price had been right, Warner would have let the song go. But Penny didn't give a shit about the song to begin with. So she's like, oh no, we can't get the song on the soundtrack.
I mean, that's just cutthroat. Oh my gosh. But Penny also she felt weary about exploiting Madonna's celebrity. Yeah. Because Warren Beatty had done that with Dick Tracy. Like Madonna, who was too expensive to play Breathless Mahoney? I think it was Kim Basinger who they wanted. So Madonna agreed to work for scale, and her paycheck for that movie was like $35,000. And yet, you know, her song, the Sondheim song, Sooner or Later, it was an Oscar winner, and she performed it at the Oscars, which she attended with Michael Jackson. How's that for nostalgia? But Penny was wary of kind of pulling a Warren Beatty. You know, she wanted to create some distance between her and Madonna, and she and Madonna didn't always get along on the set. So there might have been some lingering.
She doesn't let Madonna sing the All American Girls Baseball League song.
Yes.
And she seems very proud of the fact that she's like, Madonna's one of the backups.
Yeah. It's kind of like, to me, I didn't feel comfortable with that. Here's me defending Madonna. But I was like, you have one of the preeminent singers of the era. You should use her. She has a good voice. I'm sorry, she does.
I think Deborah Winger got in her head, though. And she's like, well, I don't want this to be an Elvis picture. And everyone's just waiting around for her to sing Blue Hawaii.
Penny was just so worried about what everyone thought. Everything had to be a focus group and a conference.
Which is why she shot so much. Yeah.
Right. Whereas like the studio and her producers were like, let's use Madonna. And that was the right call. I mean, that's taking the opportunity.
I feel like it's not often that you hear about the studios being right as opposed to the creator. The creators are usually the ones who, but when you care too much about what audiences are going to think, it's like that could potentially put you in a sticky situation. Yeah.
But it's a real broken clock situation because the studio also wanted Tom Hanks and Gina Davis to fall in love and kiss at the end of the movie. And Penny was like, I will fucking walk.
She was. She was like, no, because the original players were up in arms. They were like, that would never happen. That's such a betrayal of Dottie's husband who was off, in the war.
Poor Bob.
Also, like, Bill Pullman is like the clear winner.
So handsome.
Over. I mean,
I love Bill Pullman.
The budding friendship in the movie between Gina Davis and Tom Hanks is lovely to see, but like I like that they lean more into like he sees her as an unlikely protege.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he felt like cutting that love scene, which you can find on YouTube somewhere.
What?
Yes. Oh, yes. In the archives of YouTube. Tom felt that it was better just to have that lingering affection.
Yeah.
And maybe that sexual tension because they were office spouses. He thought that worked better than actually using the scene in that way.
That's much more realistic, I think.
Yeah.
Especially considering the era, I think.
And Tom Hanks did have a bit of a creative role. He and Penny had worked together, obviously, on Big, and that was him doing her a big favor because he was a massive star at the time. And now kind of turnabout is fair play. She's doing him a favor, kind of revitalizing his career. But she also gave him his first directorial experience because the second unit director on A League of Their Own is Tom Hanks.
Yeah, because she had to give him something to do because he would show up to set, even for scenes that he wasn't in, and just hang out. He would knock on Peach's doors and be like, hey, you want to play ball? And they would put Madonna's chair in center field because Madonna wasn't sitting in the chair. She was in her trailer and they would try to hit it with the ball. but he was a good-natured troublemaker and he just loved the humanity of the set. And it just energized him. And I think he thrives in chaos. That's how he grew up. He moved from town to town with his father and his siblings. And then he was just, an actor going from movie to movie to movie. So he was just like, he didn't want to be stuck in his trailer. So Penny let him direct the C camera, which shot scoreboard footage. And he was also shadowing her, I think, in a way, because he wanted to be a director. That thing you do, which you guys did an episode on.
Yeah.
So he was learning on the job, but also being incredibly Hanksian, gathering material for his anonymous gossip column on set, which he called Peach Fuzz. Fuzz with a PH. It arrived every Friday on Xerox copies. And it was like, this person was canoodling with this person.
Oh my God.
Different wry, whimsical observations. And then toward the end of filming, it was discovered that it was Tom Hanks.
He's like Gossip Girl /
Gossip Girl? Yeah. He loves typewriters.
I called him Lady Whistledown.
That's I was trying to remember the Bridgerton name. I'm like, what is the name of the writer on Bridgerton? Yes, he was Lady Whistledown.
That's my dream, to be Lady Whistledown. I'm like, oh my God.
The funny thing to me is that famously Tom Hanks loves typewriting letters. So I can picture him Hedda Hopper style, with a stogie, writing the Peach Fuzz on an antique Underwood typewriter and then Xeroxing it at the production office.
That is exactly the mental image that I had too.
And laughing to himself about how quippy he's being.
Should I include this or is this too risque?
So, okay, it's time for my most scorching take of the movie.
Let it rip.
I'm ready.
And I need your thoughts. Betty Spaghetti is the left fielder, I think. And she is played by Penny Marshall and Rob Reiner's daughter. So
Yes.
she doesn't have a ton of scenes, but her scenes are very crucial, right? She's the one whose husband has the Jimmy Dugan card that Jimmy Dugan rips up. And she also is the one whose husband dies when we think it's going to be Dottie's husband, right? And the messenger has like forgotten the name, which is like one of the most harrowing scenes in any movie.
So inaccurate too. They would remember the name.
But it's drama, right? But my scorching hot take is George. I don't care about George dying. Fuck George. Because the one thing that we know about George is that he beats up on Betty, right? And if anything happens to that Jimmy Dugan card, George is going to hit her. And so
does she really say that he's going to hit me? Because I got the sense that maybe I need to give that scene another watch, because I definitely got the sense that he would be incredibly upset, but to the point of physicality.
I got the sense that he was going to hit her. And so when he dies, I'm like, you know what? I'm
free.
fine with it. Yeah, you're good, Betty. Do better.
You're free. Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that hot take. I do. And also George, this was not in the movie, but George at the end of the movie was supposed to like come back from the war and
be alive.
Yes, he was alive actually.
Fuck that nonsense.
It was just an injury.
No. Get that shit out of my face.
Well, you kind of get the sense like that husbands, with the exception of Bill Pullman, just Bill Pullman, you kind of get the sense that if these women are married, that those husbands in some way are making the women's lives harder. Like with I'm forgetting her name now, but with the son Stillwell. And she's trying to explain to Tom Hanks, like, my husband just wants to look at the want ads. He can't look after our son. And I should just take him and shut up about it.
Justice for Nelson. Nelson is,
God.
besides Bill Pullman, the only good guy.
Nelson. Yes, Nelson's the only good guy.
So Alan Wilder was like the first choice to play Nelson. He was one of the members of the Steppenwolf Theater Company in Chicago. So John Malkovich, Gary Sinise, very prestigious, like serious theater. Mm-hmm. But so when the movie came to town, they were like so excited. You know, Tracy Letts tried out, and he was like one of the co-founders of Steppenwolf. He tried out for the Nelson. But Marla Hooch, or Megan Kavanaugh, the actress who played her, was like, I love Alan Wilder for this character. She saw his sweetness. Alan would like walk you to your door after a date and kiss you on the cheek if you let him. So he had this sweetness that they were looking for in that part. And Bill Pullman was just the most handsome actor at that time. You know, he was just a shoo-in for that role. And he played better as a love interest when they were screening Jimmy Dugan's with Deborah. So there was some like flame there, but he was up for that role too. But they liked him better as Bob Henson, the very unrealistically supportive husband of Dottie Henson.
I also wonder if you would find someone that good looking and seemingly a little suave, accidentally suave in like middle of nowhere, Oregon. But that's just my,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I always wondered how realistic that could be. But
he's like Carrie Elways in The Princess Bride. He was like, farm boy.
Love. Penny would cast people. Carrie Elways was so hot in that movie. Oh my gosh. But Penny would cast people that she had a crush on. She had a crush on David Strathairn.
Nice.
Who played
Ira Lowenstein.
She had his picture up in her office. And he was very hot.
To this day, a good looking dude.
So when I interviewed him, so he lives in Bolinas. I live in San Francisco. He lives in Bolinas, which is just over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Just give us his address.
I know, which is very earthy of him. He's a kind of a hippie. He preferred to sleep in his trailer rather than stay in a hotel room.
Nice. Nice.
Like he's that guy. But talking to him, I talked to him on the phone, and you could just feel that.
He's Ed Murrow. He's
I can't believe I'm admitting this, but I was like, I get it. And he's so smart and just down to earth at the same time. I was like, oh, I understand this now.
I get it.
Twice my age, but whatever.
and not supposed to be hot in the movie. I like that Penny's like, this. I want the Lowenstein guy. Him, Art Garfunkel.
And the Lowenstein guy. And he was more fun to hang out with than Tom Hanks was during the movie, because Tom Hanks was like a family man. Chet was there, and Chet Hayes was like a baby at the time, and Colin, his son, was also there, and also Rita. So he wasn't like hanging out with everyone after rapping.
He's got a column to write.
Right. David Strathairn would go to jazz clubs and hang with the girls, and he played Truth or Dare with them one night. And I was like, Megan, who played Marla Hooch, I was like, tell me, what did you guys do? She's like, I can't tell you.
That rules.
It's
amazing.
It's that interesting. Nice.
So I have one final question. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's the question of the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
Does Dottie drop the ball on purpose?
Should I answer first?
I'm gonna let Erin go first. Yeah.
Well, Erin might have like an actual.
Oh, okay. Can I?
A non-interpretive answer.
Okay. Yeah. My interpretive answer is, well, somewhere between yes and no.
The little space between yes and no.
The ambiguity, I love it. That's what great cinema is about.
I mean, I think like that scene's purpose is like left up to the audience's interpretation by design.
Sure.
But I think that it's clear Dottie was never, if you know how to be good at something without loving it, I think that's an unusual space to find yourself in, but it can happen. And she just happens to be great. For her, like, baseball is this hobby, probably a great way to pass the time while her husband's at war. And in addition to working, but she just happens to be great at something that she doesn't love the way her sister Kit obviously like lives and breathes it. You really don't get the sense that when Dottie leaves that she has any emotional ambiguity. She's like, I am ready. I want to go home and I want to have children.
Hanks even says like, you don't love it enough, right?
Yeah. And feminism is embracing, it's not about you should do, it's about what do I want to do, and can you and I'd like society to support me in that, depending on whether it's beyond the baseball diamond or whether it's more homemakery life. And that's what she genuinely wanted. So I think that like she did drop the ball on purpose, but I think if she'd really wanted to, she could have held the ball. So I think mostly she's doing this for her sister, but like it's also like, I don't love this enough to hang on to it.
I completely agree with you. I think that this is the first, everything you said, and to add on, this is the first time that she's ever put her sister first, right? Throughout the entire picture, she's in competition with Kit, and even when she doesn't mean to, she still gets the better of Kit, exploits Kit. Kit's traded to the Racine Bells. And this is the first time that she is able to allow her sister to be first. She would take that secret to her grave, probably.
Yeah. I mean, Kit wanted it the most.
Yeah.
So cheating, dropping the ball on purpose to let Kit win is an act of love, sacrifice for her sister. And I love that take. And that was my take from the beginning. Because first of all, I was pissed that Dottie lost.
Me too.
I was just pissed. I was like, this is the worst ending to a movie ever. And I was, of the mind that Kit Keller was annoying and just insolent and what a bratty little girl.
Yeah.
And now I'm pro Kit, and I think she deserved her success. So I was of that mind that, Dottie cheated to win. But after talking to a number of athletes, Abby Wambach, Jessica Mendoza, World Cup champions, gold medalists, and some baseball scholars. Yes, this is a niche industry. I'm now of the mind that Dottie dropped that ball because she dropped that ball. An athlete would never drop the ball on purpose because that would be betraying the game. And the integrity of the game is far more important than your allegiance to your sister or your team.
But is Dottie really an athlete? Other than just being good at it, like
she's a natural athlete, but is she a capital A?
She doesn't live and breathe it.
Right.
She doesn't love it as much as Kit, but she loves it, which is a secret that I think she'll take with her to her grave, and a secret that she that comes out in the open, that she finally accepts toward the end of the movie, when she realizes, oh my God,
Yeah.
I was excellent at something. I was a trailblazer and I didn't know it. These women didn't think of themselves as feminist pioneers. They thought of themselves as on the front lines of the war, keeping the game of baseball alive. They thought this was their patriotic duty. Not until the 1980s did they realize, oh my God, we should be in the history books. We should have our exhibit at Cooperstown, no matter how small it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Dottie definitely dropped that ball, not on purpose.
Wow.
All right. Well, that about wraps up our interview portion of this episode. But before we let you go, Erin, please tell us, where can we find the book? Anything else you'd like to plug? Where can we find more of your writing?
You can find me on Instagram at Erin Lee Carlson, Leigh. And you can subscribe to my Substack. It's called You've Got Mail. And it's just my pop culture writing. Yes,
awesome.
It's free. I love writing it. I think you might enjoy it. And then my website, erinleecarlson.com. Oh God, no, it's erinlcarlson.com.
And what's the title of your book?
It's called No Crying in Baseball.
Such a long subtitle.
The inside story of A League of Their Own. Big stars, dugout drama, and a home run for Hollywood.
That's a killer title. I love how you have 2 colons.
Double
I
colons.
came up with that myself.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. I can write a subhead from years in the magazine industry. That I can do.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Erin.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I love your podcast. Yeah, I can't wait to listen. And I'm going to keep listening, because this is exactly the kind of podcast that I need in my life. I feel like it was made for me.
Thank you.
In her interview with Kevin Smith on his podcast, Movie Makers, Penny Marshall summed up the theme of the movie as, don't be ashamed of your talent. And she claims that Steven Spielberg asked her if he could steal the frame story of things happening in the beginning and then flashing back and then going back to the present for his Best Picture winning movie, Schindler's List, because he was going to production as A League of Their Own was coming out.
That is a movie I can only ever watch once.
I think it's really a one-timer.
It is a one-timer.
But even though A League of Their Own only received an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, in the last 32 years, it has become an indelible baseball classic, sports movie classic, 90s classic, and it's left its mark on movie history and sports history worldwide. Thanks to this movie, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was included in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. So the event that they're going to in the movie is like a fictionalized event of them opening an exhibit in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They didn't actually do that until after the movie came out.
See, that's cool.
It's crazy.
I did not realize that.
And there are props from the movie in the exhibit, which, according to Penny, is considerably smaller than the one in the. There was a different, bigger exhibit in a different museum. The interview that she did with Kevin Smith. By the way, this podcast series is I think only 14 episodes long, and 8 of them are Penny Marshall. It's just she has incredible stories. I highly recommend taking a listen. But this was sort of towards the end of her life. She had trouble breathing and kind of her speech was a little sluggish, so it was tough to get the full details. But I think that there was already a museum exhibit somewhere, and it wasn't until after the movie came out that it made its way into the actual Baseball Hall of Fame. But despite Jimmy Dugan's assertions, every time I see this movie on TV or any repertory screenings that are in LA, there is never a dry eye in the house. Whether it's the story of friendship or family or love, or even the little bits of the LGBT story points that they were able to sneak in there, Penny Marshall's masterpiece is rich with heart, and it proves that there is indeed crying in baseball movies.
Yeah, why not both?
Why not both?
We started doing a question of the week, which I believe just shows up on our Instagram, no?
And Spotify. There's a Spotify poll that you can answer.
Well, this week's question is, keeping in mind baseball names like Diamond Dottie,
The Queen of Diamonds.
The Queen of Diamonds, Betty's Spaghetti. What are some other ones?
All the Way May.
All the Way May. Thank you. Yeah, of course. What is your baseball name? If you could just pick a baseball name, like let's do some play on words. Let's pun it out.
Mine would be Notorious VIV.
Have you been just like hanging on to that?
Oh yeah, so ready. 15 years in the back pocket.
Oh my god. Okay, well, mine would probably be like play on the word broad.
I bet, right?
Yeah.
Gotta be some kind of broad.
Bad broad.
Bad broads, big bad
Yeah.
broadski.
Big bad broadski. More like scared of the ball. Broad. Wait, I actually played baseball in the last 2 years. It was on like this like community team for like one day, and I surprised myself at being able to hit the ball and run.
Hey, good job. Double good job.
Thank you. But nothing's changed as far as like being on the
sports.
Yeah, I still hate sports, and I'm terrified because like my reaction time is slow to a lot. So anyway, that's our question of the week. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, check out our other episodes. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We're on Instagram at the InSync Pod. Find us there and let us know the answer to the question of the week. What is your baseball nickname?
We'll choose randomly from the best answers, and the winner will get some InSync swag.
That's it for InSync this week. We've been edited by Emily Reeves. Our production coordinator is Kyle Bosch. Social media producer Dale Stamfley. Executive produced by Tommy West. Original music by Taylor Barefoot. We're big fans of Taylor on this podcast.
The biggest fans.
InSync is a production of Gotham West Studios, and InSync is produced by Gotham West Studios. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the InSync Pod.
As always, thank you for listening, and thank you again to Erin Carlson.
We'll see you next time.